so this will be our agenda for today. We're going to do some introductions. We're going to talk about specifically advocacy and leadership within the school counseling roles and also the school librarian roles. Both school counseling and school librarians, oftentimes when you think of school leadership, those aren't the positions that automatically pop into most people's minds. It's usually the principal or the superintendent. But we're going to share our insights into how school counselors, school librarians can embrace and take on more of that school leadership role given their positions. We're also going to share, if you are a teacher and you have been thinking about becoming a school counselor in the future, how that can happen, to the point where I know a lot of times teachers think, well, I can't quit my day job to go back to get my master's. And now that we have online education, you don't necessarily have to give up your teaching career to get your master's, either in school counseling or school librarianship. It's not easy to do it, but it is something that the majority of our students are actually full-time teachers in the K through 12 system. So we're going to share a little bit of, I got a few school counseling testimonials, and Dr. Shaw has information on the experience of what students who've been in her program have experienced while they're teaching and also working on their librarian position. And I believe Dr. Johnson is going to talk a little bit about his experience also. And then we'll end with a Q&A session. So we're going to do some introductions of myself and Dr. Shaw. And then also, if Dr. Johnson would love to chime in, that would be awesome. So I coordinate the school counseling program. My background is more in mental health. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Arkansas. And so because of that, I tend to teach the courses which are focused more on counseling skills, counseling theories, individual counseling, group counseling, and assessment. Mm-hmm. I advise students from the time they apply to the program, actually before that even. If anyone has questions about the school counseling program, I answer questions, make phone calls, send a lot of emails. And then when they get to the place of, you know what, I think I do want to apply, I help them with that process through application all the way through graduation. And then I'm a member of several different school counseling and then just larger counseling organizations. So I have those listed. And then Dr. Shaw, would you like to introduce yourself?
Help if I unmuted myself. Yes, so I am the program coordinator for both the library media and the instructional technology programs. Today we're going to talk specifically about the school library, which I graduated from in 1999 from UCA. It was when we were still completely on campus. So I did, it was much harder, but for me, thankfully, I lived within 30 miles. I can't imagine if I were, up in Northwest Arkansas or Northeast Arkansas or over in Helena, West Helena, like Miss Terry Sturgill did it. It would have been much more difficult, but I did spend almost 30 years in K-12 education. I was a science teacher and then a practicing school librarian for 17 years. I'm a member of ISTE, AIM, ALA, AASL. There's a few others, but I just thought that was enough. I do also advise our students as they come through, they start to reach out, I'd really like to become a school librarian. What do I need to do? And so I take them through the application process. I try to make sure I answer all of the questions, but I have realized that there's much more out there that our website wasn't really showing. So we've tried to update that. And as Valerie put in there, I moonlight as a comedian in the River Valley region. I think she was thinking I would not notice that, but this morning, after I rolled my hair and I looked in the mirror again, I thought, I look like Rosanna Dana from Saturday Night Live. So I was going to put in a picture. So if nobody has seen those old Saturday Night Lives, just think, that's me. As soon as I walked outside, it went again. So, I'd love to have cute, nice hair like I had smooth there, but it's not anymore. So that's me.
Dr. Johnson, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. By way of introduction, my name's Brian Johnson. I'm a 2009 UCA grad of the program. Most of it was online. I think I was on campus for the cataloging class, and that was about it. We were still kind of in that transitioning period. I just got my doctoral degree in instructional design and technology from the University of Memphis. I walked about 3 weeks ago, so I'm really newly minted. I've been in the school library. I think this is my 12th year upcoming. And before that, I taught for 15 years in the classroom, mostly middle school, but some high school. And I've taught everything except for science. So I always love it when I can collaborate with my science teachers because I finally get to go teach science. So that's a little bit about me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And so I would love to actually hear from people in the room. So who are we lucky to have in our audience today? Just a few questions. You don't have to share your whole life story. But so where do you teach? I assume you're all teaching. So where do you teach? What are the most important things you would like to have covered today? And then name one thing you love about working in schools.
Let's start with Terry, because Terry is one of ours too. I think she can definitely speak to our program.
Okay, can you guys hear me? I am Terry Sturgill. I am from West Memphis, Arkansas, and I'm currently working at Forest City High School as the librarian. I was formerly an English teacher, and now I am a librarian. And so one of the most important things I would like covered today is how do I get my leadership to understand that I am no longer an English teacher. I am a librarian. And one of the things that I really love about working in the schools is I like collaborating with the teachers. I like the co-teaching element of being a librarian.
Thank you, Terry. I know that we will cover, we'll try to get there, but it's slow going. Shelly or Brianna, do either of you have your, oh, okay. So Brianna said her audio isn't working. She is an LPC in a school-based setting. So I believe that's a counseling person, correct? Okay. And I also taught secondary English for years before that. So I'm actually interested in moving from LPC to school counseling. So that's exciting. And then looks like Shelly is from Bologna Middle School, and she would like information on becoming a librarian. And she loves working with the kids, especially the troubled ones. That's a good thing because in the school library and school count, you work with every student. And a lot of times those kids that need you the most, they find you. And Shelly said she teaches special ed math and co-taught math. So the inclusion.
Great. Well, thank you all for sharing. Ashley, would you like to share a little bit about your background?
I can. I am Ashley Cooksey. I'm the director of our TLC here at UCA, and I also am an adjunct instructor in our iTech department, specifically the courses for online teaching and learning. I come from a school library background, and I have taught K-12 in all forms and fashions, as well as have been an instructional technology coach and a third grade literacy teacher way back when.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, well, I hope we will cover everything that y'all would like to cover. At the end, if we haven't covered it, feel free to bring up, or if you get more questions as we're going through information, just jot them down and we will answer any and all questions a little bit more at the end of the show. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about school counseling, and I am going to talk from the perspective really of kind of ideally what we hope school counselors look like when they're in school. So school counselors have many ethical responsibilities, and of course we all know that, such as maintaining confidentiality when they're working with students, supporting student development, supporting academic and career concerns of students, making appropriate referrals when needed, and especially, is it Brianna, the licensed mental health counselor, the licensed professional counselor. So making an appropriate referral to, if you are fortunate enough to have an on-site mental health counselor working in your schools, making those referrals. And so leadership, of course, can take on many different forms in school counseling. And so what I have here on the slide is one way that school counselors can show leadership and advocacy in the schools that they're working in. So as I'm talking, if you are interested in pursuing school counseling, and especially if you're currently working in a school setting, try to think of your own school setting and think of, oh, okay, do I see my school counselor doing this? Is this something that I even had an awareness that he or she is supposed to be doing? So just have those thoughts in your mind. So one way that school counselors should be creating, showing leadership and advocacy is through the creation and maintenance of a comprehensive data-informed program. And I have here on the slide what that means basically, and what are some different components of a comprehensive data-informed school counseling program. So it's everything from collaborating with the administration, the teachers, all of the staff, and the goal of the collaboration is to help work towards those school improvement goals. Also providing students, all students with a school counseling program in an equitable way. And so I should have bolded equitable, because oftentimes we see that that doesn't really happen. There may be some students that get more attention and more focus. But the idea is school counselors should really be working with all students. Another way that they can show leadership is to review school and student data to assess needs, including data, not limited to, but including data on the disparities that may exist and that probably do exist related to gender, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and any other classifications. It's important that the school counselor knows who their students are and knows if there are disparities within their school, and then work to address that. So using data to determine needed interventions is important, and then delivering those to help close the gaps which usually exist. So gaps in information, gaps in attainment, gaps in achievement, and also gaps in opportunity. And that can look like who has access and to scholarship information. There's lots of different examples that we can come up with to show these pieces. So we can get into that a little bit later on. But then also another way to show leadership is actually to share data outcomes with stakeholders, with other people that are involved in the school community. It's really important. And so here's some more information on leadership. And school counselors should act as educational leaders in their K through 12 schools to promote systemic change, which will remove barriers to student success. So that was from a journal article that I found. And I think that's not necessarily oh, wow, are they supposed to be doing that? I think most people assume that they are supposed to be educational leaders in their schools, but I think a lot of times they may not be treated as such. However, it's important that they have access to information so they can play out the roles of educational leader. So I have on here a few websites. And one is the C-Score. It's basically a professional resource. The Center for School Counseling Outcome Research. It has a ton of information on school counseling interventions. And I was going to bring it up. Let's see if I can do that smoothly, just so people can see it. Here, let me see if I can bring that up real quick, and I will stop share. And I will share my other screen. Maybe. Let's see if it works. Nope, that didn't work, did it? Okay, I'll do it. Did it work now? Can you see something that says C-Score? Yay! Okay.
I see ONET online.
Oh, darn it. Well, I was going to show that next.
Okay.
Here, let me just move it around. Okay, now what do you see?
There's probably a delay. Give it a sec. I still see ONET.
Okay. Let's see. Hold on one second. Didn't want to go there yet. Sorry, technical difficulty because I'm doing the
The
presentation.
school counselor and not the school librarian.
I know, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can take the heat.
See, Rosanna Dana comes along. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not even that funny. I find myself very humorous.
See, this is just a pause so you can tell a joke.
It totally is.
Okay, so now what are you seeing?
C-Score.
Yay!
All right.
Okay.
School counselor is coming along.
Woo! So this is a resource that is actually a really helpful resource. So I just wanted to share and put it out there because, you know, it could be helpful for anyone in education, really. But, you know, you can click on school counselors, you can click on different topics. If you're wanting to know different interventions that have worked for different topics, it's all right here. A lot of times we feel like if there's a problem going on, we don't know where to turn. We don't know where we could possibly find answers. And the awesome thing about research is that it's available. It's available to you. And I think with our school counseling program, we try to bring current research into our classes so our graduates will feel confident in knowing how to access information when they do encounter problems. So I just wanted to show that as a tool, I guess. Okay, and then the next one, maybe I'll just type it in. The ONET online. This is a resource that I grabbed some data from on one of the slides, which talks about employment trends for school counselors and employment trends for librarians. If you don't know what ONET online is, it's such a useful tool. And you can even search by state if you're interested in moving. You can look at data for different states. You can look at wages and typical work duties. If you're not sure, if you really want to be a school librarian or if you really want to be a school counselor, you can do tons of research on here just by clicking find occupations, all those spaces. Okay, that was my little sidebar. Okay, now back to the slideshow. Can everybody see the slideshow now?
Now we see your speaker notes, but that's okay. I've put in the 2 resources you used down in the chat. Even for a school librarian, we typically you work a lot with the school counselor because you're both kind of islands unto yourself, but you're also such huge parts or pieces of every student, every teacher in the building. So we do have a lot of power, I hope.
Thank you. Okay, so can you see the slideshow now? Yep, okay, awesome. And also what I put on here, you all may already know, but there's myschoolinfo.arkansas.gov has a Arkansas Department of Education data center, which has a ton of awesome data that's really available to all. It's a public site. Parents can look at the information, students can look at the information. And so I think if you're becoming a school counselor or a school librarian, actually, there's some really useful data that you can get from these sites. And then if you're working in schools, you can also collect various forms of data, which can help inform your practices and help improve your student outcomes. So the goal is to use the information that you find to practice data-based decision-making. So here's a little plug for our UCA School Counseling program. How do we infuse leadership and advocacy principles into our program? Well, we actually are housed in the Department of Leadership Studies, which let me tell you is, I think, somewhat unusual. Most school counseling programs that I've run into are housed in more of a psychology and counseling department. There aren't that many Department of Leadership Studies programs actually out there that I have seen that school counseling programs have been a part of. So because of that, I feel like we do have an emphasis on leadership. We have a required course that is called Visionary School Leadership, and it's taught by former school principals. It's a requirement for people who want to be school principals, but it's also a requirement for people who want to be school counselors. And here's a list of some of the topics that are covered. Everything from leading school-based learning teams to how to build consensus among diverse stakeholders when there's a needed change. And, the change process is really difficult for everyone usually. And so trying to help teach people how they can more effectively build consensus is, it's a real skill. They also review communication skills, just the organizational structure of schools, overcoming obstacles, and institutionalizing change in schools. So really some meaty topics that I think a lot of different school counseling programs don't cover the school leadership piece as much. And this is something that's infused in our program. And then here we have some, which I'll let Erin talk, some advocacy and leadership roles within the school library.
So I took this just a little bit of a different perspective. And so I was using the American Association of School Librarians take. They have the strategic leadership roles of school librarians. And so this was a piece that I played quite a bit, quite big pieces. Curriculum development, I worked with every teacher in the building. And when Common Core came out, literacy was banned from coming to the library. So I had to think about how can I get people into my middle school library. It was 6th and 7th grade by then. So I had to reach out to the social studies, to the science, and they were very receptive. But then I needed to know their standards. But anytime I ever tried to find any kind of resource for them, I already knew that. So I think we play a huge role in curriculum development just across the board. The art teacher, the PE teacher, especially when Common Core came out, they all had to do research activities. And the teachers weren't prepared and they didn't want to do it. So I could offer those pieces. Instructional design, technology integration. I often was one who provided professional development on technology pieces and programs I didn't even know yet. Like, I don't know how many times my principal would come. Oh, I just learned about Edmodo. You're going to teach a professional development next Wednesday after school. Okay, I'll learn it. I'll do it. I would do lunch and learn. So a lot of times, and I wanted to be there. That was the big thing. Because student advocacy, we need to be able to reach every student, every learner. Not just the kids that want to read. And we need to be able to provide a collection that is appropriate, but also diverse enough that we are offering every perspective. Information literacy instruction, which is something Brian just finished his dissertation on, and I did as well back in 2017. So that's a huge piece. We don't call it library skills anymore because for some reason, with administrators, that turns them off just completely, even though every kid needs to understand digital literacy, information literacy, media literacy, any kind of literacy you can think of. There's so much information out there. And then collaboration. That's huge. That's if you're not collaborating as a school librarian, if you don't like people and you just want to sit and read, I'm going to say go get an MLIS and work in the public library. I'm just going to be honest, because you're going to see kids and people and teachers, and you should, and you will be teaching a lot. And I know Brian has to leave soon, so I'm actually going to turn this over to him and let him speak to even the school counselors. I promise he has experience also as a completely online learner in a graduate program. So he can tell you maybe even some ins and outs, how to balance. He's got 4 kids. He has a beautiful wife. He has a job that he does an amazing job at, and he successfully did this. So Brian, Dr. Couture, if you would maybe stop share. I know Brian was going to share just a little bit.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shaw. I want to hit just the, how do you balance all this? Because there, as you saw from what Dr. Shaw just showed up on the screen, there's a lot of responsibilities as a librarian. And, when we think about teaching, we think about, well, what do teachers do? They teach. Well, sometimes I talk with my students, I say, well, what do librarians do? Well, do we library? That's a harder one, right? You don't know what we do. So I do want to get into that, but I wanted to touch on just how do you balance. One thing that really helped me going through the doctoral process and also just the master's program was just blocking, having some part of your life not get touched by your degree program. For me, it was running, or even just going for a walk with my wife, Anna. Like every day, that was something we would do, and just sort of blocking that space out. If you can block space out for your kids too, even just something like, hey, we're going to go walk for 15 minutes, or doing something like that can go a long way to, we all know exercise does great things for us in a lot of different realms, mentally, physically, emotionally. That's a real key to that. As much as, when you go into a master's program, be it counseling or library, there's going to be some rigor in the programs with UCA that you certainly have to contend with. But yeah, just if you can find something that you can just block out and not let be touched by your degree, that can go a long way to really helping you to be successful. I did want to give some really practical suggestions just about. I wanted to go practical, and then I also want to use some analogies I've actually used with my teachers, because no one knows what librarians do. We can't library. Okay, yeah, I'm librarying right now. What is that? One thing I really want to encourage, I want to give you some contrary advice to what I got when I first went into the library. I went into a high school setting, and people told me that I just needed to spend the first year in the stacks, meaning I had to go out and just spend time with the books. And books are good, but you have to be able to balance both of those. And I think I spent part of the first day kind of wandering through the stacks and figuring out what we had in the collection as far as books, but really library is both a balance of the books and also the technology. But I really would encourage you, as you're going, well, what does librarian look like? Coming out of school or leaving with a library degree, jump in right away to go interact with your teachers. I mean, the stacks are important, and knowing what kind of resources you have available, those are important. But go out and spend time interacting with your teachers right away. Another really practical suggestion I make is even just go walk the building every day, because those passing periods in the day between when the bells ring, those are really key collaborative moments. Dr. Shaw hit on how important collaboration is. And that's my favorite thing about being a librarian too, is I still really see myself as a teacher. Sometimes I tell people that I'm a teacher in really, really tall letters, and then librarian in little tiny letters, because I'm still a teacher. But using that time in the hallways to just say, hey, Miss So-and-so, what are you guys working on today? And then maybe I can send her an article, or maybe, hey, Brian, we're about to start working on this. Can you come help my kids with this? Or, hey, can you come, plug this in for me, or show me how to use this new device or this new technology. But being out is really, really important, just as you start. I think the way that we talk about our libraries is really important too. Something that I don't say, sometimes there's a perception that, this is my library. This is not my library. I'm very conscious to just say to my teachers when they come in and say, well, Brian, I know it's your library, I said, no, it is our library. So even using that verbiage of this is our space and these are our resources, really, I think goes a long way to just kind of starting to reframe for our teachers all the things we can do. Another thing is I say, go out and be willing to try stuff. I'm a really big soccer fan, and I don't know if you know who Clint Dempsey is, but he played for the U.S. national team for a long time. And he played in Europe for a long time. And the coaches kept changing. And so he always had to go out and prove himself. And one of the U.S. managers actually referred to Clint Dempsey, said, well, what's special about him? He tries stuff. So go out and try stuff. Dr. Shaw showed us about 6 or 7 different things: the collaboration, the technology piece, the teaching. Those are all very important components, but go out and try things. Say, hey, no one's ever taught, this geometry concept like this before. Hey, could we, interact with your math teachers? I want to echo a lot of the things that Erin just said. We really have to go out to our different departments, and, it's a natural connection to be an English teacher and kind of connect with the English teachers because there's books, but those other content areas, even your choir teacher, even your PE teacher, the Common Core makes those areas, and literacy is so important, all those varieties of literacy. I guess another thing that I would just say is really just never stop learning. There's always ways that we can tweak and adjust what we're doing to better serve all our students and also all of our teachers. And sometimes those teachers in your building who, there's probably only one choir teacher in your building, or only one PE teacher, or health, or engineering, or even I've had a lot of fun collaborating with our family and consumer science teacher just on different projects. I learned how to 3D print this year. Finally, it's something that's been on my list for years. And one of the things we were looking at is ways that we can support them. Like, we made game pieces for a teacher this year, one of our English teachers, for an editing game they were making, but we're going to start making things for our family and consumer science class next year. And just, those other teachers who, just similar to a librarian or counselor, where you're probably the only one, those are sometimes your best collaborative opportunities going forward. I want to share a couple analogies if I can here. Let me see if I can get this to switch over here. So I'm going to share my screen. Get back here. Give me just a second to get this switched up.
So I'll read the chat while Dr. Johnson is finding that. So Terry pointed out they don't know what we do. For some odd reason, and they, as administrators, they think we're not doing anything. If they come in and there's not a whole class going on, they would leave for any kind of thing. And then Ashley said, as an elementary librarian, she spent those first couple of hours, 7 to 9-ish, for the first 2 weeks of school with the kindergarten hallway. They just needed another set of adult hands to help those littles navigate to their places. So little people scare me, but yes, there were other places at the junior high and the high school I could add just a little bit. So, okay, Brian.
Well, the first analogy, and I'll get back. I'm from Chicago, so I had to include the Blues Brothers in this, and I'll get there. But when I think about what does it mean to library? I think being a librarian is a lot like surfing. And if you've ever been surfing or if you've seen people surfing, if you're ahead of the wave too far, what happens? You crash, right? But if you're too far behind the wave, what happens? You also can't stay up on the most current thing. So really, we have to, as librarians, we have to be able to kind of ride the edge of the wave. And a really practical resource, you're looking for, well, how can I, Dr. Shaw was mentioning about her principal had asked her to lead about Edmodo, and she had to go learn that. That's that kind of learner mentality that I think is really essential to being an effective librarian. But a really good resource is if you've ever looked at the AASL top 25 apps that they put out every year, those are really good. Like I look at those every summer as I'm trying to plan professional development for my teachers. Where can I plug in? What will be something that I can help them get? So that's a really, really practical thing. I think it's called the ASL top 25 websites, and they do a new list every year. Another thing, if you're not on Twitter and social media, you don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel. I think one thing that I learned from the UCA program is, there are people who think inside the box and people who don't know there was a box. That's me. Like, I'm totally outside the box. And I think UCA, the program, helped to instill that sort of what if thinking, or how can I try something, or giving me some skills and tools to go forward with that kind of a mindset, because that helps me to serve my teachers and be as effective as I can. I do want to show just a few. These are a couple of analogies I just want to wrap up with, because I have to go pick up my daughter from basketball here in a few minutes. But for who are you as a librarian, and kind of what roles can you fit in? I referenced surfing. We want to, when people surf, people watch, right? There's always people who watch. We want to see, and sometimes we fall on our face, and I could tell you all kinds of stories of ways I've fallen on my face. But we have to kind of be attuned to our teachers, or attuned to the wave of where education is going, and be out in front of that to anticipate the needs of our teachers. Twitter is really good for that, and also the AASL top 25 list every year. But one of the things that our teachers need, just like our picture that's up here, is sometimes our teachers kind of need a sidekick, and that goes back to our. That's where we have to kind of think about how can we support, especially our teachers who are just sort of single teachers, kind of like maybe you're the only counselor in the building, or you're the music teacher, or the family consumer science teacher, engineering teacher. Those are great instructional partners. Sometimes we can provide that moral support. I guess we can also be Chewbacca to Han Solo. Kind of their right-hand person to support them off. Again, that just an encouragement piece. And going out and talking to your teachers, that's so essential. Those professional relationships are where collaborations come from. And there are some teachers that I've worked with where our there's different levels of collaboration. Sometimes collaboration is just sending articles to people. And sometimes I send articles, as I'm listening to PR coming into work, and I hear something that's really interesting, and I'll send that podcast right to my teachers. Or hey, I know you guys are about to study this, and this sounds like something that might be a good fit. And sometimes that's where the collaboration is. Sometimes they ask me to come in and co-teach pieces. I do lead professional development. I call it the digital diner. My wife, Anna, cooks things, and then I'm never sure if the training is so good that they come for the food, or if it's the training. I sure hope it's the training, but it might be the food if I'm really honest. But I offer those several times a year for my teachers too. Maybe you're the person in the background. Maybe the teacher is leading the instruction, but maybe you've trained the teacher. Maybe you have kind of provided the melody behind the work that they're going to do in the classroom. This is probably my favorite one. If you know who Tenzing Norgay is, and Sir Edmund Hillary, he was the first guy to climb Mount Everest, and Tenzing Norgay was his Sherpa. And sometimes teachers, I really like what Dr. Shaw said a couple minutes ago about teachers and the way that they, if we talk about library skills, people see libraries as extra. When we talk about research skills, or to use this analogy, what Tenzing Norgay did for Sir Edmund Hillary, besides being a guide for him, he also did a lot of the intellectual heavy lifting, or the heavy lifting of the packs and the things. You know, teachers need to see their librarian as someone who helps to take the load off, not coming, you know, when I go to my teachers and say, here's this extra thing, or they perceive it as extra, they're not going to buy into it. You say, well, here, can I come teach this piece of this lesson for you? Can I come give this, can I show you how to use this app? It'll be a really great fit for where you are in the curriculum. You know, can I help to take that intellectual load down for you a little bit? That's a really powerful way that we can support instruction through the library. Couple other ones, just being Sacagawea to Lewis and Clark. Sometimes we're the guide. You know, hey, I really need an app to liven up this lesson. Do you know one? Or, you know, hey, how can we connect our learners? We do a lot of Google Hangouts through the library too, which is a great resource. And there are different pages and groups out there to connect you with different learners and teachers. You know, this is a way, again, being an instructional leader is a key part of being part of the school leadership team and providing that instructional support. Sometimes we're a travel agent. That's the Google Hangouts. We connect with kids and classes around the world. We connect with authors. And the great thing is a lot of authors will do it for free too. We buy, I work in a really high poverty school. We have 85% free and reduced lunch among our student population. And so we do book club and we buy copies of YA novels. And then we can usually get the authors to come talk to us for free on Skype or Zoom or Google Hangout. But Google Hangouts are really a way that you can literally connect your kids with classes and teachers and experts around the world. We've met with driverless car experts and companies that are actually designing these things right now. And we can be that really powerful connector to enhance our students' learning this way. Sometimes we're a travel outfitter. Sometimes it means we're just helping to equip our teachers. You know, we're going to help kind of load up their, you know, I guess we could call them instructional kind of saddlebags there. And, you know, sometimes we're a concierge. You know, what does a concierge do? You know, if they're walking up and down the aisles of the plane or the thing, they go to the teachers. You know, invite yourself or get invited to when there are PLC meetings or the professional learning communities, or, you know, when all the 8th grade social studies teachers are getting together, or the, you know, the elective teachers. You know, hey, can I come show this app? Or hey, can I come sit down on your meeting? Because sometimes those really build those productive discussions about how we can support instruction through the library. And I think that's the last one here, but that's just that's kind of a quick summary just on, hopefully there's a couple of good practical things in there. Just, you know, go out in the halls, jump in right away, and go talk to your teachers. You know, use the verbiage of it's our library, and then go out and support instruction, you know, and be open to any possible way you can support instruction too. Sometimes it's just sharing articles. Sometimes I pepper teachers with articles for several years. And then finally, year 5 or year 7, they find, hey, Brian, can you come work with my class? But, you know, there's lots of different great ways we can support the instruction that goes on in our buildings through the school library.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. That was what I you know, listening from a perspective of someone who has just finished a graduate program, that spoke volumes. And then I loved your analogy. Those are great, because you're right. But I was also making those connections with the school counselor. You guys also do all of those things or can do those. So thank you for sharing just your own personal perspective. And I think Ashley had popped in the chat. She shared her library with the school counselor because they didn't have a space of their own. They have an office, but they could host, you know, a library as part of library in her class on the other side, where you could even, you know, collaborate with those.
Aaron, can I say one more thing? I saw a comment from Terry, just mentioned that, you know, I think it happens in counseling and also sometimes in school libraries, just I mentioned going out and walking and just being seen, but, you know, and I was really interested in something that Dr. Couture said a little bit ago too, about how you have some former school principals teaching the leadership classes. One thing that goes on in library, kind of in library land or the library end of things, is administrators don't get trained on what their school librarians can do. So we really have to be our own advocates. And I think walking the halls and being in PLCs and being seen, like I never say like, hey, you see me, right? But it's always good when I can look over at my administrators in that same meeting going, oh, look at this as a way that, you know, he's a part of these instructional conversations. But something else too is just to, you know, email your faculty when you're doing something. You know, making how-to videos is another great thing, especially in this, you know, hopefully we're coming out of the COVID thing. But even something like sending out some kind of a weekly or a monthly or even a semester, I don't know if semesterly is a word, but a semesterly newsletter of just like, hey, this is what's going on, and sending that out to all of your families, out to all of your administrators, that can help to reshape those conversations of the things that we do. Even if your school has a Facebook page, like I'd like to do this more consistently than I do, but sometimes I just do it on S'more, and we send it out, and everybody in the community gets to see, hey, they had a virtual author, and oh, look at the collaboration that they just did with the science class, or this is the, you know, those can also be powerful tools, because we have to be our best advocates. And I think that's true across the counseling and also the, you know, we have to let people know the things that we're doing to support our students, all of our students and all of our teachers.
That spoke volumes. So I was thinking the same thing as you, Dr. Johnson. I didn't realize even here at UCA, there was a administration and school counseling class. I'm trying to figure out why our school librarians aren't at that table in that.
Yeah, because we, you know, what research would say about that from my dissertation is the way that we've, even as K-12 educators, we form our impressions of what schools should look like based on, you know, I love Miss So-and-so, my third grade teacher, those experiences. And then those kind of get reshaped in our methods classes sometimes. Yeah. And then also based on our personal experiences and experiences of our colleagues. Well, I think our administrators fall into that sometimes of, hey, you know, the librarian was this kind of grumpy person who just shh all the time. And we have to be advocates to help to reshape that for what a 21st century library is and all the support it can provide.
That's a great point. Thank you. We really appreciate your time today.
Yes, okay, thank you. I'm gonna sign off. Thank you. Okay. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Go pick up your daughter.
All right, we'll do. All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye. You
Have
too.
a good day.
Okay, bye.
So Valerie, or Dr. Kuchar, will you share back wherever we were? It didn't even occur to me about that course, because my next slide, when we get to it.
Let me make sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Can you see the slideshow?
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah.
Great.
So if you just want to advance to the next one, I put in our administration you know what? You probably need to refresh your, yes, because I added in a couple of things probably before you started sharing. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Let me go.
I think it's 10.
Okay, so this is.
Or it is still yours.
Well,
okay.
But you added in your course.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm still seeing. Oh, I do. I didn't change the title. UCA School Counseling. I copied your slide. That's what it is. So thank you. So our leadership and advocacy, we advocate for our school library position all the way throughout our program, but there is one specific course, Administration of Information Programs. The thing about being a school librarian, if you were to go and get an MLIS, a Master of Library and Information Science from an ALA accredited organization, you would be choosing from being a public school librarian, an academic librarian, some type of specialty librarian, or a school librarian, a reference librarian. There's all different things out there. In a public library, you have someone who is specifically the reference librarian. You have a cataloger. You have someone who works the circulation. You have a children's librarian most of the time. As the school librarian, you are all of that in a nutshell. So, you know, you're learning cataloging, you're learning collection development, you are learning how to be a teacher librarian. You are learning how to develop these special programs. You are learning trends and issues in children's literature, all of those pieces. And then we have our one course that is administration of information programs. That's like running your entire library. So you're doing budgeting, you are doing everything. So within that course, we identify and define leadership styles, and we describe the place, of that operation in the information center. A lot of our students don't realize where their weaknesses are in leadership and where their strengths are. I know my organizational skills. I'm a connector. I'm going to connect with people. I'm very good at that, and I'm very good at advocacy, really trying to push for my program, or our program, but also for the underdogs. I'm very passionate about that. But then there are other management skills that I'm not very good at. I'm great at cataloging, but the actual processing of the books, those are things I don't enjoy, and I never did. So it's great to go through and see where you fit as a leader and where you need improvement, or to find a partner, somebody else to help, and then, where you can really kind of take charge. We also identify and describe time management techniques, which I'm terrible at, but how it's going to benefit you in the information center. I'll never forget my very first year I always do call it my library, in the library, the high school library. I didn't know what to do. I had spent 7 years with 150 students back to back, doing 9th grade science. And I walked into this library, and it was high school, and it was very quiet. So I thought, gosh, what do I do with all my time? So I learned my collection. I did all of those things. I tried to reach out. Nobody wanted to do it, because at high school, they're very siloed. The English teachers stick together, your math teachers stick together, and why would they ever want to come to the library? But I tell you, I got them in there. Your social studies. But it was at the end of the year, they all wanted to come and do a research project the exact same week. I was like, really? I've been sitting here for an entire year, and maybe saw the drama teacher. They came a few times, and one of the science teachers, because we had 5 whole computers at that time. But the rest of the time it was feast or famine. And so I had to learn. I had to do a lot. We also look at survey data. We need to, we inform our practices. When Dr. Couture was talking about that, I thought, gosh, she sounds like a librarian. We look at, the personnel, the qualifications we need, what kind of training, even with student workers, you need to really think about privacy, and make sure that your 7th grader is not running around telling what little Johnny checked out from the library. We had to really think about those privileges of giving those students that kind of power over their peers. We need to look at, how your media center is going to operate, what kind of policies and procedures are you going to have. I followed a librarian who charged fines and for overdues and didn't let kids check out. And then I thought, gosh, I'm limiting access probably to the kids who need it the most, or I'm charging these arbitrary 5 cents a day fines for something. A few of them would come and they were like, Miss Shaw, I can't pay this. Can I work in your library before school? I'll wipe down tables. And I thought, well, okay, I could use some help. I definitely needed help with, shelving the books if they did it right. I did have to train them. But they wanted to dust. They wanted to do these things, wipe down the computer screens. I thought, why am I worried about 40 cents when I could let them do that? You have to look at, how much is it going to cost if you're going to do some kind of special library program? You can't just decide, I'm going to host an author on campus for $3,000, and gosh, I don't have any money to pay for it. You have to look at your facility and look at plans and figure out, if there are any renovations coming in, what do you absolutely need, and what could you change about your library? But I realized this course, administration, I don't know that we really include administrators in this. So this is something I'm definitely going to think about. So I'm going to inform my practice. All right, Dr. Couture.
Okay, so this slide is just about maybe trying to hear from our participants. There are many forms of leadership, many different ways to show leadership in a school setting, and many different ways to advocate for students, advocate for teachers. Um, and so I have a question for everybody. Have you seen examples of school counselors or school librarians showing leadership in your current school or in past schools? As we're talking about advocacy and leadership, is anything bubbling up in your mind? And if so, please share your experiences. You can either share them in the chat room or you can talk too.
I'll speak to this for a minute. So I moved into, like I said, the high school library first, and then I moved to a junior high 6-8 library and then a 5-7. And the 5-7 one I spent 15 years at, and then it became, well, partway through it was 6-7. But I had different administrators, and some we got along famously, I don't know, very well. Others, there was a lot of tension. And then I would get a new one, and it was like I had to prove myself again. And I think probably after, I don't know, the second or third, I kind of had a reputation of being a rebel, if you can imagine that. I wanted the kids to read. I wanted the kids to come to the library. If you could, I was assigned with dyslexia interventions for like 2 students instead of getting to see an entire class. I thought, how is this? I don't know anything about dyslexia, first of all. I don't know how to teach reading. I was a biology teacher. I have a K-12 library background. Why in heaven's name does this look like a good idea? Oh, well, we have this program. You can follow this because you can read. I was like, yeah, I can read. A monkey could do this. Why don't we hire a monkey or get a volunteer and I could do my library job? But we went round and round over that because we were limiting access. We had 450 some students. So the other 448 didn't get to come to the library for the hours that I was working with too. I just found it odd. But what I had to do was try to keep my place at the table, so to speak. I was assigned a 7th period PLC with the school counselor because there was only one. The band teacher, there was only one. The art teacher, there was only one. And so we were just kind of this weird group of mismatched people. But I really did want to be at the table with the literacy teacher or the social studies. So I would, if it was scheduled on a Wednesday, that was when our PLCs were, if I had the literacy class in, they had 3rd period prep. Well, and then I was supposed to go down to this 7th period PLC while I still had a class in the library. I didn't have an assistant. I thought, well, this is crazy. So I emailed this new principal and I was like, could I come to the 3rd period with the teachers that are coming to the library today? And at first it was, no, you need to come to the 7th period. And I thought, well, if 3rd period, nobody's going to be in the library anyway, I said, could I just sit in on the 3rd period and I'll come back for the 7th period? She was like, well, okay, if you want to. I think she thought I was trying to get out of things, but when she realized I was actually trying to figure out what literacy needed from me, then it was received as, oh, okay, and so it just took a little while. I had to have patience and I had a lot of prayer. I'll admit that freely. But it was when out in my professional organizations, when I was named the school librarian of the year, that my district noticed. That's when my administrators really. So if you're feeling just really, like you're not appreciated, not a part of that, I don't know, I recommend maybe getting involved in some different professional organizations and starting chair a committee first and just kind of work your way up. There are leadership awards, there's lots of things. So I don't know, that was just one of my stories, one of my many. I don't know if Shelley or Brianna or Terry, do you guys have any, with school librarians? Or Ashley? Ashley had put in, she was prepped for the teachers, but they shared their notes and planning documents. She was able to select and comment on areas where she could provide support. Let me pull a book for that or set up a display. And so she could cover citations, since they were doing research in their class. So those were great ways she could partner. Hi, Terry. She has a question. I see it. Hello. She's got the raised hand.
Well, in my case, this is my first year here at Ford City High School, and the teachers here were very excited about me coming out and diving in. They were not accustomed to that because I did, jump in. But because of the platform that they were using to teach their students as a result of COVID and virtual teaching, they they started to get really confused about their platform. So it got difficult to help them because they were trying to figure out what they were doing and they couldn't figure out how to collaborate with me. So I kind of found myself having to fall back from them this year, and I began to just uh, create screencasts and shoot them out to them as well as the students. And but I would really prefer to have been in there with them or getting them in here. So that is the only thing I can say as far as my leadership. And I don't even know if you would call that leadership, but that's what I'm doing right now. And I even created some digital platforms of my own using that same one that they use. And the kids are like, we see you. How do you say your name again?
I think that's an excellent example of showing leadership and showing advocacy because you're advocating for the teachers so they can work uh, more efficiently and more professionally. And then, indirectly, that means you're advocating for the students too. I think this past year, thanks, Terry, for bringing that up. This past year with COVID, I know there's been a lot of school counselors um, and probably a lot of school librarians. I just hadn't thought about that, but there've been a lot of school counselors just offering any and every support they can think of to teachers because teachers have a full class load. Sometimes part of them are virtual, sometimes they're in the class, sometimes they get quarantined. I know my own kids both had stints of being quarantined for 2 weeks, and then it's just the teachers have really needed the entire school system to support them to get through the year. And I think school counselors have done um, what they could as far as putting information into Google Classrooms for the students, but then also just for the teachers, trying to be as helpful as they can because this has been a really difficult year for everyone, but especially for the teachers.
Yeah. So one other, Terry, are you in charge of, do you guys have like televisions out in the hallways of your school?
Well, we do. And they were there with nothing scrolling across them except for a fact for the day and the menu. And so I asked technology, could I post some things on it? And they actually set me up a username and password and they were like, have your way. So I put things on there. I'm looking at it now, and the teachers in the administration, they were like, when did our faces get up there? What do you mean Happy Principals Day? Or
I did that all the time. If I did have a class come in, I would usually put one kid that was usually the kid that wanted to be super helpful and not read because they were just all over. And so I would hand them an iPad and I'm like, here, take a few pictures if we're doing this digital breakout or we're just reading or doing something. And I would talk to them, make sure you only take good pictures. Somebody doesn't want their picture taken, you can take it from the back. So, I had a lot of conversations with those. And so I would throw those into an Animoto slideshow and play that, throw some music to it or whatever. It did take more time for me to, but I don't know how many times a teacher would come in. How do I get my stuff up there? I'm like, well, if you were in charge of this thing, you would, because I always was trying to struggle, or I'd do like a book trailer. And parents would come in and see these things and they were like, oh, wow. But yeah, now 1 year, I will say, we were supposed to decorate our hallways, and there was a business teacher next door to me, the speech pathologist, and the PE teachers. There were two of them, two coaches, and myself. Oh, and the choir teacher, because she didn't have a hallway. So we were all supposed to decorate this hallway like for Christmas or whatever. And even the coaches brought their kids down to help hang. I don't know, we did some kind of penguin thing because Miss Seibert found it. But like the literacy teachers, they had their hallways and theirs were beautiful. And then the math, they all had these great ideas and ours looked really bad. But the speech pathologist, she didn't help. So I penguined all of us in one of those. And yeah, I played that on she was a little mad at me, let's just say. So I did lots of things like that.
Yeah, I asked the secretaries for a photo and they didn't know why. And they never come out of the office. And then they got wind that they were scrolling across the screen out here.
And so they came out of their office.
Yeah.
Good.
And our principal is always making announcements about no phones in the hallway, no cell phones, no this, no that. So I just, made a
meme.
Well, there's a template for, we use Rise Vision.
Yeah.
There's a template that says no cell phones. And so I was like, what do you think about this? I'm going to put that up there for you. And he was like, add in the hallways, add not in the classrooms. And I was like, gotcha. Yes. And he loved that. So now he's not blaring over the intercom as much as he was saying, stop, stop, stop.
Yeah. So that's a great way. So school counselors, I was going to speak. I know we had at least one that was looking at school counseling. That was something, Cindy Evans, she was a elementary librarian. She's married to Stoney Evans. If anyone has been to any Ames stuff, Stoney's like the man of the year. And then Cindy she's just super sweet, his wife, very quiet. But she talked about they were trying to do some digital breakouts or breakout boxes in her elementary school. And she realized the kids, this was, of course, the year before COVID, but she even said she started to notice it anytime they did any kind of group activity. The elementary students really didn't know how to work together. So she reached out to the school counselor and they partnered. So the school counselors came in, or they just had one, and did some team building activities before they tried to do these other activities. So I thought that was just a fantastic partnership, to take that piece of here's how you build a team, here's how you work together, that the elementary counselor just really seemed to get to know how to do. And that helped, the librarian in her perspective.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to share, Brianna, Shelley, or Ashley, before we move on?
And we're guessing everyone is okay, right? Pull your own happiness wagon. If you got to run to the restroom, run to the restroom.
Yes, take care of yourself, definitely. So I decided to look at a couple of slides because I know I get emails and calls all the time from people who are working in one occupation and interested in school counseling, but they're wondering, well, are there any job openings? If I go back to school, will it be worth the time and effort? And I know for Arkansas, for school counseling, there are jobs out there. It's looking at the ONET online, which we already went to that site. But school counseling in general is a bright outlook occupation. For the US, it has a much faster than average projected job growth, and then it has an average expected job growth for Arkansas. There's a lot of baby boomers who have been teachers and school counselors for years and years and years, and they are they are retiring. I'm a member of the Arkansas School Counseling Association, and they have a listserv, and job openings are shared frequently on that listserv. Probably every couple of weeks or every 3 weeks, someone who's a school counselor will make an announcement. Hello, I'm retiring. Or hello, I'm moving to a different part of the state. There's going to be my job's going to be open, and they'll give a little background of my principal's awesome, the kids are awesome. And so there seems to be, in some ways, I think, because Arkansas is not a really populous state, but I feel like there is a network of people who know each other, and it's probably through the professional organization, the School Counseling Association. They do a summer conference, which is a pretty huge summer conference. But as I've been with UCA for 5 years, and so far people haven't had problems finding jobs. Now, a lot of the people who are teachers, they will get their school counseling degree, and then they're going to and then they will sit and wait for an opening. So they don't have to necessarily leap. For people who really are wanting to leap, then they are usually willing to move a little bit, and they're fine with that. But so for the school counseling, I feel like there hasn't been, I have not heard of any huge issues with people not being able to find positions when they're ready to make that leap. And then for school counselors, Dr. Shaw can talk, or school librarians.
Yes, I did. Okay. Yeah, we have a faster than average growth rate in the US, but also, and we're talking specifically school librarian for our program. We are AASL accredited, not ALA. So the only option we offer is school library, which is very productive because we are a shortage area in Arkansas schools. So you can go to the Department of Ed's website somewhere, I could look for that, and they will actually pay sometimes for you to go through the program because we are a shortage area. Or when you complete the praxis, you can usually, after you've passed, you can turn in your evidence, and then you are refunded for the praxis exam fee. So I loved my time as a school librarian, but as Valerie pointed out, sometimes students will finish our program, and if they don't want to move, there's only one school librarian in a building, so it may take a little while, but typically you can find a position, if you're willing to look outside of your specific building. Same thing with school counselors. People seem to, they enjoy what they do, I think, and so they stay longer.
Thank you. And so here's some information just for our specific school counseling program. It is 45 credit hours if you are an Arkansas licensed teacher. If you're not, if you don't have a teaching license, but you have a bachelor's degree, it's 48 credit hours. So you just have to take one additional class. All the classes are online, 100%. You don't have to come to campus. When I first started working for UCA, we would bring people in for Saturday sessions. And so I think most of the people who know about our program or who've been through our program remember coming in for Saturday sessions, but we've gotten rid of that. So we are online. We do have some evening online class meetings where you would need a computer, you would need a microphone and a camera. And so that would enable you to join some virtual class sessions with your instructor, such as myself and the other students that are in the class. And we use Zoom. We also use Blackboard Collaborate to create the virtual classroom, just like we're in right now.
Valerie, so Brianna was asking, it has been years since I looked at it, but are LPCs still able to apply for school counseling positions? She already has her teaching license. Do you know?
So if you have a valid teaching license, you can apply for school counseling jobs. And And so you don't even have to, be an LPC. If you have a valid teaching license, you can apply for school counseling jobs. If they want to hire you, usually what they will say is, okay, you have X amount of time to complete your master's in school counseling. Because you do have to get a master's in school counseling and you have to pass the praxis for professional school counselors. And usually there'll be a time limit of 2 years or 3 years that the principal will have for you. There's a waiver that they have to do with the State Department. But oftentimes we will get people in our program who were teachers and they were just hired to be the school counselor in their school. And so they've been referred to us to get started in the school counseling program. That's a great question. So yes, so the teacher to school counselor roadmap is first to gain program admittance through going through our online program application, which is at the graduate school website, take the online courses, and then we do have field experiences. And so what's pretty cool is that so far our people who are teachers have been able to maintain their teaching position while they're in their field experiences. So we require a 100-hour practicum in the fall or in the spring. So that's at 100 hours where you're doing school counseling activities in a K through 12 building. And then after that, we have internship 1, which is 300 hours of school counseling activities. And then the semester after that, we have internship 2, which is another 300 hours. So it is a lot of hours and it takes a lot of flexibility. You have to work with your on-site school counselor. You have to make sure your principal is okay with you using some of your class time to do some of those maybe classroom guidance lessons. You might use some other teachers' classes. You basically have to get the approval of the principal and the on-site school counselor. And I have in a couple of slides some people who went through our program. They did some written testimonials on how they were able to get that done. And then of course you have to pass the Praxis Professional School Counselor exam to get the K through 12 school counseling license. Okay, and then the librarian.
Okay, ours was 36 credit hours, but there were 2 technology courses that 10 years ago it made sense, but now that we have embedded technology throughout our program, we were able to apply to streamline it, I guess, a year and a half ago. So ours is 30 credit hours. It's 10 courses. They're all online. Ours also used to have like Saturday for the reference course. And then we had like an online or an on-campus orientation. And at the end, you had to do a presentation of your portfolio. But we have moved it 100% online. So now we have students in, different states, as long as their state, they had to check to make sure it would be valid. You do have to have a master's degree in some type of library science to become a school librarian in the state of Arkansas. You used to have 3 years of teaching experience, but I think they omitted that a few years ago. We do have ours are evening, and some of them are online face-to-face. So you call that a synchronous session, and we use Zoom and Collaborate. Collaborate's a little more clunky, but we use either of those. Sometimes it might even be a Google Hangout link, but we try not. Most of the instructors don't meet every single week for a course. Summer sessions tend to be more asynchronous in nature, just because it's hard. Everybody has professional development and lots of other things to have to do. I think Terry's coming back because she probably had to do the 36 hours, didn't you? Or did you get to do the 30? Just a second. It was 63, 68, but there were 2 iTech classes, design and production of media and tech planning and leadership.
My memory escapes me, but I do know
good.
that
Maybe you're not coming back to say, you mean I had to pay for 6 more hours?
No, I took the specialist route, so
that's right. That's right. Okay. Okay. So did did you want to share anything about yours yet, or I just saw you came back on. So for our roadmap, again, you apply to graduate school, you need your transcripts, a teaching license, immunizations, all of those things. You don't have to take the GRE. There's not a separate application. You just go straight to the graduate school. There is, I don't know, a $40 fee. I don't know what the fee is. We don't get any of that money, I promise. Valerie and I would be going to lunch if we did, and dinner, and yeah, all kinds. Once you're accepted, you contact your advisor regarding a course sequence. There isn't like a total, a scripted sequence, but there are definitely some things. You don't want to take collection development before you've taken cataloging. We like you to take research methods kind of early in your program, just because it helps you learn that kind of scholarly writing and APA. It's super fun. And then we also have a field experience. Ours is a little bit different. Ours is 120 field hours, and you have to do it across 2 different grade levels. You need a secondary site and an elementary site. The good thing is, if you're in a school library, also we have some classroom teachers that their district hires them, or their building hires them to become a school librarian before they have completed their degree. We now allow them to do the 40-40 split, 40-40-40. That way they can do some of the hours, because if you're shelving books, you're shelving books. It doesn't matter, and some of the other tasks that, daily tasks, if you are in a library, you're working in a computer system, whether it's or a online public access center, whether it's Atrium or Destiny or whichever one that yours uses, but you still will have a mentor, someone who has at least 3 years experience, and you will work 40 hours with them at the elementary level. And then typically there's a different person for your secondary experience. And the great thing about that is you can see things that work at all of the levels, and you can sometimes see things that don't work. I followed a librarian at the high school. Even we still have the old card catalogs. That was in 2000. But we had an online system, and she showed me how to print barcodes, but she typed the spine labels on a typewriter, because she said the thing didn't. And I was like, oh, okay. So I listened to her for 2 years. I physically typed using a typewriter these spine labels. And one of the other librarians in the district saw me doing that one day. I don't remember. She came over from the element. She said, what are you doing? And I said, well, this is how Miss Tessing did it. And she said, why don't you use, I said, well, it only prints barcode labels. She said, no, it doesn't. So anyway, I did learn how to use the laminator without laminating my hair or my necklace or any of those things. That's a big deal. And then you have to pass the praxis test. It's the 5311 for the K-12 endorsement. There is an ancillary teaching license now specifically for school librarians. If you don't have a teaching license, but that's very few and far between. They just lifted that, I think, this last July. So we really haven't had anyone come through to do that yet. And we have a 99% pass rate on the praxis. I feel like I took it last year. I had never taken it. It was hard, but I passed. I was glad.
Good job.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we program graduates tell all. So I tried to get some school counseling students to Zoom and to share their experience. They passed on that opportunity, but I did get some written feedback. And so let me I can share my written feedback with everybody, and then we can move to Dr. Shaw's school librarian students. So, okay, one of our former school counseling students, Jessica, was nice enough to say she let me use her picture, and she answered these questions. So, what was the experience like going through the program as a teacher? During her experience, she was just beginning teaching. At first, she was anxious, not knowing if she could balance everything. However, she was quickly reassured by the professors in the program that it was possible to be successful at both. And she was continually encouraged, and she was able to contact her professors whenever she felt overwhelmed. So she had a good experience, and she thought it was really helpful to her as a classroom teacher, having probably that extra support. And then the next big question usually is how am I going to be able to get enough hours for practicum and an internship? And so in Jessica's case, she worked closely with her mentor, so that's her on-site school counselor who's in that role, to be part of different small groups such as student council or lunch bunch groups. And she was able to find time to work and counsel her own students in her class or after school, as well as other students within the school. And she had discussions with her administrators and was able to be a part of different leadership councils in the school. So I think that's really important, that, when your administrator knows, and when other people in the school know, oh, you're working on your master's degree, they may start to look at you a little differently. If, oh, well, maybe she would like to take part of this. Maybe this would be something that she could be interested in. And so opportunities will open up. And another question I had for her was, what was easier than you imagined? She was concerned about the workload, but she was able to complete her assignments with clear planning from the syllabus. So I love it that she actually wrote the word syllabus, using the syllabus and having discussions with the professors on due dates and assignments, emailing, she was really proactive. So doing all those pieces really helps to get the work done. And then challenges, she said, yes, there were challenges, but she never felt like it wasn't something that she couldn't conquer with the help of her peers and then also her professors. And then I had one more student who emailed me some feedback. This is Angie Nix, and she was actually a school counselor at Flippin, and she just recently became one of the newest Conway High School counselors. So that's really great. So what was the experience like going through the program as a teacher? And so when she went through the school counseling program, she actually had a job as an elementary school counselor. So she was a teacher, then she got that elementary school counseling job. And she said it was wonderful to be able to work in the field while she was also learning immediately. And she could ask questions throughout the program that she may have not known to ask. Had I still been teaching, I would have needed to rely on my mentor a lot and would still have worked out great though. And what was easier than you imagined? Angie said she felt stuck at the beginning on which counseling method to use, and she had a fear that she was supposed to know how to handle all the issues. I wanted to know what everyone used and how they used their methods. When I got into the job, I realized that I would use different methods depending on the situation, and that I certainly didn't have to know everything or have all the right answers. I was a resource for people and a listener. I also realized that my heart was the biggest asset. I always want to do what's best for kids and treat everyone right. It was a relief to understand my role and grow in my confidence as a school counselor and understand my strengths and weaknesses. I don't know everything, and I never will. The nicest thing is that no one expects me to. And then for her, the challenges. So the biggest challenge was the emotional toll that the job would bring. It's very difficult to help carry everyone's pain and struggles every single day. I'm a listener at work, and that is a huge part of my job. I've learned that I cannot take everyone's problems home with me. It's a real struggle. I also learned many things about people that I cannot share with others. The job is physically, emotionally, and mentally demanding. It's also incredibly rewarding. And then she was easily able to get enough hours for a practicum internship because she was working as a school counselor. So if you have a job as a school counselor, you're working 40 hours a week. So that's not a problem to get hours. And then Erin, I didn't know if there was anything you wanted to share.
I didn't get, so Terry is here as a former student, all of the above. And so I didn't know, Terry, do you have any of those experiences? I know Terry was working at she was in a library, right, as you worked through the program as well. So, do you have anything to add? I can close my ears if you want to tell them, stories on me. I'm fine with it. I'm okay. I know she made it through with flying colors. She was a great student, so I will say that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Shaw. I just want to say that I felt completely lost because I was coming from another school district into a completely different profession. I went from teaching to library, and I went from a large school district to a rural, small district that was in trouble. And UCA and the library program were was very flexible. That was the thing that I can say I really loved the most. Um, the way you guys worked with us and were kind of helped us along. It felt like, very nurturing to students, and it helped a lot because I really didn't know what I was doing, and sometimes even my professors could make contact, like some of the other libraries that were close to me in my county, Dr. Shaw, that you even recommend that I call or contact or get in touch with. And I built a network with those librarians. And so um, that was great. And I think that is what I appreciated most. And that's the thing that stands out most to me is just how flexible and how accommodating you guys were in helping us to complete the degree, considering that we're taking class and working at the same time. And I felt like everything that I was learning was very applicable to what I was doing in my space.
Good. Well, I know Terry and one of my great friends, Weta Cunningham, you guys did smash up job last year. They did a presentation on the Bad Boys book clubs, and I got to go to that, and I was so proud of my student. I was like, Weta came through the program, I think around the same time I did, so we've been fast friends for many years. But yeah, well, good. Did you have anything else to add? That was very, very nice.
I can't think of anything else. No.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about the school librarian program or the school counseling program? I know Brianna asked one earlier in the chat box, so I got that one.
Terry, I don't know that we really went through how to get across to administrators what we do, but I really I'm going to reach out to our administration program and see if we can get a place at the table. I know Ashley Cooksey and we've worked on an advocacy committee for a few years, and I think that is part of the issue is them thinking back to those 20 years ago, Miss Vermelia with the mad face and the that was actually the assistant in my high school library, and she didn't want kids over there. It was terrible. So I modeled my my perspective off my middle school librarian, Mr. Orr. He wanted kids in there and taught us things and wanted us to read. So yeah, I had to learn what not to do. I kind of felt like that clothing, whatever show what not to wear. So maybe we need to, I think we as a profession, we need to get our faces and the good things out there of what we're doing. And
It would be nice if maybe like as they take courses to become administration, leadership courses, that a library is incorporated into that, like finance is or school law is, because they really have no clue. And there are lots of laws for the library. And
mhm,
I know this administration wasn't even aware of that there are laws for the
right.
library.
Well, I will tell you, there is one thing. Ashley Cooksey teaches our iTech tech planning and leadership course, and she's really revamped it. She doesn't necessarily have school librarians in there anymore, but thankfully, as a former school librarian, she has these just the iTech people, but also the administration program. And I know Ashley has paved the way for them to think about their school librarian as a leader and as a partner that that really can provide key resources. So I'm mulling in a little at a time, but yes, yeah, I'll work on that for sure. Because, well, Dr. Couture and I and two administration professors, and Odnola, who's also a school counselor, we are working on a research project, and we have surveyed how many, Dr. Couture, it was hundreds.
Over 100 principals, over 100 school counselors, librarians off to see how many ended up responding.
Right, and it was overwhelming at the leadership teams who was perceived to be part of the leadership team. School librarians, we were left out more so than the school counselors. And that presents, a bit of a problem, a huge problem. If yes, so I'm working on that too. We will be published soon, right, Valerie?
Hope so. Well, and yeah, I just got an idea based off your conversation. All of our programs have advisory boards, and I know our school leadership program has an advisory board. It would be interesting to see if they would be open to having a school librarian sit on their advisory board to kind of mix it up instead of having just principals sit on there, because they may just, their worldview is different. But to have a little bit of variation in who's sitting on our advisory boards, that would be interesting to look into that.
That's a great idea. And we have a new program. Well, we will have a new program coordinator for that program soon. So the best time to change is now, isn't it? Shake things up. Okay, we've got good ideas. All before 12 on a Tuesday.
Are there any other questions out there? This is basically our presentation for today. So I wanted to thank everybody for coming, but I did want to leave room if there's any more questions out there, feel free to ask. I did have our emails up on the slideshow, so hopefully you jotted those down if you need those. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining. Thank you so much, Terry, for sharing your experience and your expertise. It's very much appreciated. Okay, let me follow Dr. Shaw's lead.
Yeah, I put my email in there if anyone needs to reach out, and then Valerie put hers in there as well. And just to kind of reiterate, the partnership between school library and school counseling really has been phenomenal. When I started here as a visiting professor 4 or 5 years ago, Valerie and I did a presentation on career resources, and so we've been fast friends ever since.
Yeah,
we're learning from each other. And then Ashley put in all of the PD sessions will be on our YouTube channel within 1 to 2 weeks after the live session. So she's put in the channel, and then I believe you'll get your certificates within 2 to 4 weeks, Ashley, or did I just make that up?
I thought it was
certificates in 24 to 48 hours.
Oh, well, that's 2 to 4 days. Well, yes. That's different than time management.
It will come in a handy dandy PDF with the Arkansas code on it for your PD certificate, so that you can pass that along to whomever is in charge of placing that in your shoebox account.
Okay, and then Ms. Cooksey put in there that there are still 15 sessions. They're 2 hours at a time. They may not all last 2 full hours, so you might as well go and learn something. We didn't think ours would take an hour. Yeah. 30 minutes. But gosh, get me talking.
Thank you all for joining. Have a good day.
Thank you guys. Bye. Bye, Terry. It was so good to see you.